Well, welcome everyone. This feels like home. I spent a few years sitting next to Mr. Nightcamp upstairs. He would bump me once in a while, make sure I was paying attention. So good to be back home. I'll call this meeting into order. Okay, we're going to do introductions. I'm not sure we're going to always do introductions because sometimes it feels like we're introducing ourselves, but we're going to do it today. So, Glenn.
Nightcamp, Zealand Township.
Joe Bauman, Ottawa County Board of Commissioners.
Ken DeWeert, Fillmore Township.
John Conhansel, Allegan County Road Commission.
Russ Teslav, MACC Authority Board.
Nancy DeBoer, City of Holland.
David Van Genhoven with the MACC.
Tim Berkman with the MACC.
Jim Story, Allegan County Board of Commissioners.
Skip Keeter, Park Township.
Kevin Kleinstra, City of Zealand.
Tom Bird, Ottawa Road Commission.
Brad Charlo, MDOT Lansing.
Eric Mullen, MDOT Lansing.
Staff.
Carolyn also with that. Brian Ridley with the MACC. Kelly Gowers with the MACC.
Joe Spalding with the MACC. Rob Vink with the MACC.
All right, thank you very much. First thing we're going to do is take a motion on the minutes.
Move approval.
Thank you, Jim.
Support.
All right, it was a race. I think you got it. All right. Questions, clarifications? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. I don't see any public to comment. All right. We're going to start with a report on the state's long-range transportation plan. We welcome Brad Charlo from MDOT. And Brad, the podium is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to come here on a nice, bright, sunny day today. I can't remember the last time I've seen the sun out for 3 days in a row like this. But they also say Lansing is the cloudiest city east of the Mississippi. So it was very nice to see the sun here. Thank you for having me come today to your meeting. I'm here to discuss Michigan State Long Range Transportation Plan. So I know you guys are very familiar with the development of the Metropolitan Transportation Plan that the MACC here develops through your guys' approval process. But we also have to develop a comparable plan at the statewide level, and MDOT is in charge of leading that effort with everyone. So I'm the project manager for this long range plan, as well as my other hat where I'm in charge of the travel demand models, which you've heard my staff come here and talk about in the past. So what is a state long-range plan? Basically, it is a multimodal policy-based planning document that establishes the vision, goals, objectives, and key strategies for the future of Michigan's transportation system. Now, this is for all modes of transportation, not just roads and bridges. So we look at transit, we look at non-motorized, we look at rail, we look at water transportation and air transportation as well. And this plan, just like the Metropolitan Plan, says federally required and must have a 20-plus year planning horizon. So our horizon will go out to the year 2045, and we're at the very beginning of this process. We do hope to have this plan developed and adopted by December of 2020, but we're at the very beginning of this effort, and so it'll take us quite a while to get there, but we want to make sure that what we develop here has the entire input of our stakeholders and our partnering agencies. So this slide just kind of shows where the long-range plan fits in with the overall planning and program development process. So really the long-range plan is at the very, very beginning of this process. Most folks think about most folks are involved more at the project side of things and the planning of projects and then actual construction of the projects through the program delivery. But we have a few steps in front of that. And first of all is developing the long-range plan, which establishes that vision, the goals and objectives, as well as the key strategies and policies and performance measures. Now that, along with other state, regional, and local priorities, such as the Metropolitan Transportation Plan for this area, then get fed into our program development, where we look at the mode-specific plans as well as asset management plans. And then from there, that funnels even more specific into our transportation improvement programs and our 5-year transportation program. And then from there, we actually construct and develop the projects that has been determined through this whole process. So the long-range plan must address 10 key planning factors. And so for some reason the security isn't showing up here, but we do have 10 factors. The top 8 of those have been here for a long time, but the last 2, resiliency and reliability and travel and tourism, are brand new factors that are going to be new not only to the state long-range plan, but also to the metropolitan transportation plans. So these are 2 new concepts that came out of the latest federal reauthorization bill known as the FAST Act. And so when we're looking at resiliency, we're looking at how well does the infrastructure hold up to severe weather conditions and stuff like that. When we're looking at reliability, we're looking at the consistency, and not only in terms of travel times for congestion, but how reliable is our system to withstand the different types of extreme weather events. Travel and tourism is something that Michigan prides itself on. It's one of our key industries, so now the plans across the nation must address that, but I do believe for the most part our plans have been covering that for many years. We just have to strengthen it up a little bit more. So where we're at is we're at the first stage here of really creating that vision for transportation in Michigan. Whereas the last couple of plans that MDOT has done has been a reaffirmation of a plan we developed in 2007. This plan is starting from scratch. So we are starting from the very beginning and developing a whole new plan which will have a brand new vision. And so what we need to do right now is get all the information so we can craft that vision and then work through our leadership and the governor's office as well as our state transportation commission to approve a vision. But before we get there, we're doing extensive public engagement and background research in order to try to lay out the foundation to inform them on what components should be incorporated into that vision. So we're going to have a series of workshops coming up here hopefully in June in terms of providing that consensus in order to develop that future vision. And so this vision will then be used to develop strategies, goals, and objectives for our system. So the big thing we wanted to talk about here today is how can you become more involved in this process. So we've been looking at various opportunities to engage you guys as well as the general public, our stakeholders, and our partnering agencies throughout. So we've been attending several public meetings in person over the last several months. We started our public comment period on the visioning here in January, and we'll be concluding this about April 12th. And so what we're hoping to get right now is folks' priorities and what they see as the future of transportation. One of the things I put around your table here is a hard copy of our MetroQuest survey. This survey is found online at michiganmobility.org. But I also, if you have time to fill it out here today in the hard copy, we can put it in this box before you leave, and we can enter that into our server on your behalf when we get home or back to the office. But this survey basically asks folks what their priorities are. First of all, we ask you to rank various planning factors in terms of what you feel is the most important. The plan has to address all these things, but we also have limited resources, so we want to make sure we prioritize in the right fashion. There's also some trade-off analysis that we ask you guys to kind of show. If you had a choice between one or the other, where would you see the investments? And then finally, it's kind of a money game, but where we basically ask folks if they had 50 points to allocate to these different areas, how would they go about doing that? And then some basic demographics. So it only takes about 5 or so minutes to fill out. And as of this point, we're at over 5,600 surveys across the state have been filled out in the last 2.5 months right now. So we've been very encouraged with the sheer number of people taking the time to fill this survey out, but we're also looking forward to sharing with you the results of that. So one of the things we will be asking our team to do is to not only show what the statewide numbers are, but we'd like to, for the MPO areas, share with them, since we do ask what zip code people reside in, to take those surveys with the zip codes that fall within your MPO area and provide the results of the survey to see how your area compares with other MPOs across, as well as our NDOT regions, as well as the statewide. And so we'll be providing that to you guys in the next few months once this survey completes as well. Other ways we've been engaging the public, as we did in the beginning of February, 2 telephone town hall meetings where we went out and we sent press releases announcing it, and several folks called in on their own via their cell phones, but we also randomly called 10,000 residents across the state. And we were pleased to say we had over 3,000 people participate between those 2 town hall meetings on February 5th and 6th. And then we're also we got our own email address here, as well as social media that where people can provide comments as well. So at this point, our plan is this summer to create that vision after we finish this public comment period over the next 3 weeks, and then from there to start developing the plan itself. We will probably be going out again later in the fall for a second round of public involvement, where that'll be focused more on establishing the goals and strategies after the vision has been established. And then finally, we will finish developing the plan and hope to have it ready for draft review next fall. And we plan to adopt it in December of 2020. So that's really where we're at right now. We're just getting started on this, but we wanted to make sure that we could have a chance to come to you guys and share with you what we're doing here. And we look forward to working with you guys as you develop your own metropolitan transportation plan and see how we can coordinate our messages between the state plan and the regional plan here. So I'll take any questions if anyone has.
Excuse me, I came in late and you may have mentioned this, but in 1992, we not only had a gas and weight tax increase, but we also issued transportation bonds. Have you mentioned that?
At this point, we haven't gotten as far as looking at the investments.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
At this point, we haven't gotten as far as looking at how we're going to fund the system. We're looking at what people's overall priorities are. And so, yes, we're aware of what's going on in terms of the revenue, but at this point, we're just looking at what do people want to see out there, and then we're working with our financial folks to determine the revenue.
Well, it was 1992. Governor then was John Engler, and his staff told him that by coming out in favor of a gas and weight tax increase, it was, quote, political suicide. And in any event, we issued transportation revenue bonds, and they were in the amount of $5,000 each. And Governor Engler was reelected, and I'm sure that Governor Whitmore will be reelected as well. That was a bold decision, but we did it, and we did it with transportation bonds. Has MDOT recommended that to the governor's office?
I can speak to that a little bit. Bonding's always a question is always on the table. what we run into with those bonds is, bonds are really just borrowing against the future. So we ran into in the most recent years, a lot of our program has been towards paying off debt service on bonds. So bonds were and have been discussed with the governor, but I think what the governor's office is looking for is an overall revenue increase rather than borrowing from the future. If we do get an increase, or if there's an increase on the horizon, I think bonding will be discussed to maybe advance some of the work to pay for it a little earlier, but as long as we have that revenue promised and coming in the future, I think that's what kind of where it sits right now, but I think she's really focusing on the increase at this point.
Not to get into a debate, but wouldn't it be cheaper? We wouldn't have to be concerned about truckers getting their gas in Indiana, Ohio, or Illinois. And it would be those bondholders, supposedly non-Michigan bondholders, that would be paying the interest on those bonds.
Well, we still have to pay the bondholders buy the bonds, and we have to pay them interest when we repay the bonds in the future.
But who would the bondholders be? Michigan residents?
Well, they could be from anywhere. They could be, they could be anybody who's a holder.
Anywhere in the nation.
Right, but we eventually have to pay for those bonds to take them off to reduce that debt. So that's
We got to do that anyway.
right. So, in kind of the point that we've been in, we're starting to come out of it here in the early 2020s, is those bonds that were sold in the 90s. We are paying the debt service on those today, and that reduces the amount that we have available for capital programs. So, it's definitely a tool that the governor has discussed, and I'm sure we'll discuss again. But I think right now she's focusing on getting the increase or having the increase out there so that when we do bond, we are we have the ability to pay those back without having a great impact on it in the future, so that we're prepared for it. So.
Okay, thank you.
Nancy.
I heard a presentation from the Director of Transportation at the MML with the Board of Trustees last week. And the one concerning thing to me is that you're changing the formula of the use of the money. So there's an acronym that starts with an S that has always determined how we allocate transportation dollars, and the new revenue is going to be done in a different way to target the most used roads, which makes us on West Michigan's side a little nervous about, we don't want, if all of this extra funding comes through, we don't want it all going to one side of the state kind of thing.
Yeah, all of that is still being negotiated right now. That was just the first initial proposal that came out. We have heard comments, both good and bad, about the possible restructuring of that formula. One thing I've heard is that would only be based on new revenues and would not be taken away from the existing revenues. But at this point, we really aren't able to comment really any further in terms of that, because they're still all working out the details of what that's going to be.
Well, I just think if you want to sell it statewide, it's good to have a formula that people kind of depend on and if accepted, and just add to it with the amount of money. That would just be my 2 cents. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, these are all very good questions. This plan here really is a way to kind of set the priorities, so when they do decide on what the best way to fund things moving forward, they can have these priorities laid out in front of them, saying these particular areas are what folks see the most important versus other ones are important but maybe not showing up as high on the rankings. So we're using the survey and other ways in order to help inform them as they make those determinations.
And you're surveying the state as a whole?
Yes,
correct?
the entire state. We're getting surveys across the entire, all 83 counties, and we've had over almost 5,700 surveys filled out thus far in the last couple of months.
And it's pretty balanced as far as feedback throughout the state?
It's pretty balanced proportionally in terms of population. So the urban areas obviously have a much broader number of surveys being filled out because that's where the bulk of the population is, but we are getting surveys filled out across the entire state as a whole. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Tom?
I don't know that it was mentioned, but a link to your survey was sent out to us all by the MACC.
Yep.
So if you haven't done that already, it only takes about 5 minutes to do the survey.
And if folks aren't comfortable doing it online, we have the paper copies here as well today. So either way to fill it out, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for your presentation, Brad. I know you've been kind of on tour with this, going and speaking to many different groups. And if I just want to understand it correctly, I think I heard you say this stage is kind of the visioning process that you're gathering this public input from. But as far as was it the fall when you're going to be working on the goals, the kind of the strategy for implementation? By that point, I would imagine we have a clearer picture on funding and what's going to happen. Will that then be laid into that process in terms of, developing how this is going to be implemented?
Yeah. We hope to see what the future funding will be by this fall, and we're at the point in the fall we'll be setting particular goals to say whether for pavement, for transit, for non-motorized in terms of where they want to see the future of that infrastructure. The other things this plan's looking at as a whole is how is the impact of new technologies and connected and autonomous vehicles, the emerging of e-scooters and all kinds of other new types of ways of getting places that are still evolving. How is that going to play a role in this effort? So yes, all of that is hopefully that's all going to be studied quite heavily at a statewide level, and then laying out those goals and strategies. And then from there, as we're laying out those goals, we'll probably have a similar survey like this going back out to say, here's the vision based on what everyone told us. Now here's some potential goals that we see based on what you said. And then confirm that those goals align with what the public and our stakeholders feel. And then from there, we'll finish the actual writing of the document.
So the MACC would be engaged again at that point to kind of play a role in that process of defining goals and strategies.
Yes. So we want to involve you guys throughout this entire plan process. Sure. So there's really 3 opportunities to get involved during this, and then we're also looking at the development of a stakeholder group that'll maybe work in parallel with the MDOT team. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Brad, I appreciate your being here, explaining the process. So it sounds like MPOs do have a voice that's somewhat distinct rather than individuals. MPOs do play a role in the process. The questions on bonding were very interesting. I think we all know how that works. If you bond for something that loses its useful life, it's like paying for Prince Fielder when you don't use him. So I understand that bonding has to be worked out. Thank you for being here.
I was going to say with Brad, with this online survey, there's 5,600 responses we've gotten so far. I mean, that's thousands % better than we've done on any other long-range plan in the past. I mean, we're doing it the old way of trying to get people to show up to public meetings, and everyone knows how that goes. We've hosted meetings where we've had 1 or 0 people show up. Getting 5,600 responses so far is just phenomenal, and hopefully we can get it up there even more. And really,
I did take the survey, and my only comment was if you've got comment from me and from Tom, his are going to be more meaningful because he knows more than I do. So that having that connection with road commissions or MPOs would be important. So.
Yep, and we had a gentleman who had these surveys at the Cray conference a few weeks ago. There was also a county engineers conference where we plugged this back in February. And the Transportation Bonanza, we've been all over the place trying to get word out on this plan and to get folks to participate in this survey.
I won't belabor, but when I was a young man, when we used to drive from Indiana to Michigan, my father would say, see how much better the roads are in Michigan? Mm-hmm. I just hope we get there again, It would be nice. All right, Carolyn.
All right. Well, good
afternoon, everyone. So this next, let me put this on. Yeah, so the next presentation will look very familiar for any of you that were here last month. So as I mentioned last month when talking about the air quality conformity document that we had to have a resolution to sign, I mentioned that you're going to see this next month. You'll have deja vu. So this month, we're doing the same process again, but for Ottawa County. So again, this went out. It was the second email that went out to you that had the resolution for Ottawa County for the air quality conformity, as well as the public document, the conformity analysis, about a 40-page document. Almost word for word the same as what you saw last month for Allegan County, just with some updated dates and refined information just for the county for Ottawa. And so it's going to be resolution 3 instead of 2 this time. Ottawa County, again, the reason why we have to do this, even though it's not like Allegan. Allegan, as you know, part of the county for Allegan is considered a non-attainment area. Ottawa County is in attainment, but it's a maintenance area. And the reason why we have to go through this process, sign the resolution for this analysis, is really goes back to the South Coast court decision that was made this summer, this past year. So because of that court decision, it was ruled that even if a county was a maintenance area back with the 1997 ozone standard, we still had to run conformity. And what that basically means is, every month when I bring to you any amendments that we make to the tip, it just means that every single month I also have to meet with people from MDOT, FTA, EPA, and then also GVMC in Grand Rapids and Windsor-Dick and Muskegon. So usually it's an email chain. What we have to do is we have to send in those amendments. Everyone reviews them to see if anything would have to go through a modeling again for air quality. Most of the time for our region, because we are smaller, a lot of our amendments aren't going to trigger something that needs to go back through an actual modeling process to see if it contributes to air pollution. The only time when that would really happen with an amendment is if you are changing the scope of a project and maybe you're adding a whole new lane. Mostly it'd be for widening projects. Sometimes we actually do want to do air quality modeling again if maybe you have a roundabout or something that's actually going to improve your air quality, so you can prove in the model that we're doing that. So again, this process that we're going through with these is because of that court decision that said, no, you also still need to do this for even counties that are maintenance areas. Maintenance areas last for 20 years. So I think we still have a few more years with Ottawa County. But yep, the process for us at the MACC is just that every time we have an amendment, we just share our amendment list with that whole group, and we get everyone to say, yep, I concur that no extra modeling is needed, and then we go on with our lives. So it's just kind of another extra step that we have to do as staff, just with those amendments. So that's kind of the background on why we need this again, but you kind of heard the whole spiel again last month with Allegan County. Again, it's part of the Clean Air Act, why the court decision happened in the first place. And again, we have the new resolution just for Ottawa County this time. And it says that we're doing great. Ottawa County is in good shape. They looked at all of our projects for the 17 through 20 tip and our current long-range transportation plan. And we're doing just fine. So we're meeting all of the requirements for our projects. And I'd love to tell you that this is the last time we'll be talking about this. But with the new tip cycle coming out very soon in the next couple of months, we'll likely have to hopefully we combine them for you, Allegan and Ottawa together. But we'll have to, again, do another resolution for the new tip cycle and then the new long-range plan eventually. So this isn't the last time you'll hear about getting a nice signature on the page for the resolution. But I'm assuming that, like last month, you would not like me to read the entire resolution, but I will read the title. So the resolution to accept the 1997 Ozone MACC conformity analysis for the Ottawa County part of the 2040 Metropolitan Transportation Plan and the 2017 through 2020 Transportation Improvement Program for the MACC. And it's Resolution 1903. Would you like me to continue reading at all? Or is that sufficient? Okay, great. And then we will need a vote on this to allow the signing by David.
Members? Looking for a motion.
I'll move the approval of the resolution.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, we have a motion and a support. Any questions for Carolyn? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carolyn, you're on next.
All right, yeah, for the tip amendments for this month, put them out here. Not too much going on. The first three are FY20 jobs. They are new ones that we programmed into JobNet for the next tip cycle for the 20 to 23 tip. Because it's that overlap year, it currently is sitting in this tip cycle, our 17 through 20 tip. So we are approving them today to be added into that. And then eventually they will get rolled over into the 20 to 23 tip. So the first one is our Clean Air program at the MACC. That's funding that goes towards our Green Commute program, West Michigan Clean Air Action Coalition, all of that public education that we do in outreach at community events, or we set the display at different offices. That's kind of that type of money used there. For 2020, we also have a bus purchase that Max Transit would like to have put into our tip. And then below that, there was a, for Ottawa Beach Road rapid rectangular flashing beacons. On Ottawa Beach Road in Park Township, they'll be having a project that's going in this year, but the funding is kind of advanced construct. So the funding is in FY20, but I believe they're starting that improvement this summer, I believe. So that's going to have a pedestrian cross, I think similar to what the City of Holland has, where you can push the button and it has the beacons flashing for pedestrian safety. The next one down is an MDOT job. They're doing a bridge rehabilitation project with deep overlay and railing replacements. It's I-96BL over Black River. I believe the location on that would be just south of Lakeshore Drive there. I believe it's just in that section there over Black River, or Macatawa River, as we officially call it here. It has two names in a way. And then for the last one, it is an abandonment. I think maybe you could speak to this one. I don't know if you have some further information on this one. But I'm pretty sure there was an email that came through that I think this one's being abandoned because it's wrapped into another project number. I think it's part of a larger project that's happening.
It involves resurfacing of a carpool parking lot, and I think either that's getting rolled into something else or the funding from that was being taken for something else. But it was a small job.
It's actually fully going away. I believe it's just that it's a maintenance kind of question in JobNet. Any questions about the amendments this month?
Okay.
Kind of straightforward.
Thank you, Carolyn. We need a motion.
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Tom. Any further questions for Carolyn? All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thanks, Carolyn. Mr. Mullen, any comments for us?
So on that job, Carolyn's exactly right. It's just being rolled into a new job number, 200662, to maximize the savings of having those two projects as a single project. So what's going on there?
Any questions for Eric? All right. Thank you for being here, both you gentlemen. Appreciate it. All right, Kelly. It's almost time for lawn care.
Sounds good.
The Lawn Care and Landscaping Partners Program, I just wanted to review it quickly with everyone, just as a reminder. We did meet with our participating lawn care and landscaping companies last week. It's a little bit later in the year than we typically do. We like to usually meet with them in early March and get their recommitment to the program before they delve into their lawn care or landscaping jobs for the spring, but a lot of scheduling conflicts and the weather has not been helpful with that. So just a little bit of background. This program started in 2006 in partnership with the lawn care companies. They helped create the initial program that was launched in 2006. They were kind of at the table, kind of coming up with the requirements. So there were 7 companies that first year, and really the driving factor behind this was phosphorus reduction and trying to meet the Lake Macatawa phosphorus TMDL efforts in the agricultural areas, and so this was a way to kind of step up the efforts in the more urban areas, kind of getting at lawns as another important source of phosphorus. So it started in 2006, and I did just want to point out that was prior to the Ottawa County phosphorus ban, which went into effect in 2008. So this was a little proactive, kind of ahead of that the county passing the phosphorus ban and then the subsequent state ban. So the program has evolved over the years because there is an actual law in place now. We don't have to focus on voluntary actions so much for the phosphorus, so we have other things that we ask them to do for water quality. And then this does fit in with the MS4 permits in terms of the educational requirements. Lawn care, especially grass clippings, is an educational topic. So through our lawn care companies, they are doing these practices and promoting it to their company or to their clients for us. So then our MS4 entities can kind of get some educational credit for that happening. We have rebranded the program. It started out as a seal of approval, and I felt that really didn't adequately describe the practice, or the program. Seal of approval kind of gives you this connotation that there's some standards that are being measured and we're auditing and making sure they're following, and that's really not what was happening. We're asking them to voluntarily do actions to help protect the water quality. So calling it a partnership, a partners program seemed more appropriate. So we made that change last year. And then I mentioned we have the annual meeting to review the requirements, and then I also use that as an opportunity to discuss other topics with them. So this year in particular, we focused on green stormwater infrastructure and then also water conservation. That is a big topic of the Holland BPW, especially related to irrigation. So those lawn care and landscaping companies are going to be key partners working with BPW on addressing that issue moving forward. This year we have 18 potential partners. I'm still getting all their signed commitments from them because our meeting was a little bit later in the month. They're still kind of rolling in at this point. We had 19 partners last year, and one of them has gone out of business. So they will not be re-signing up for the program. So briefly, the program requirements, the first thing has to do with the Michigan Fertilizer Act. So that's the act that is the statewide ban. So there are certain requirements in there. So they have to follow it, but this kind of is affirming their commitment to that. That they are always measuring the lawn to make sure the proper amount of fertilizer is applied. They're not just applying fertilizer, they're making sure they're taking that time to apply the right amount of fertilizer. And if the homeowner is doing some of this work on their own, they would provide that information to the homeowner to guide the homeowner's application of fertilizer. Grass being cut no shorter than 3 inches. There are some benefits to having longer grass that will stimulate greater root development, that will help hold the soil in place. A healthier lawn needs less water, less fertilizer, and that is part of the, within the range of recommendations provided by the MSU Turf Science Center, where we pull a lot of these recommendations from. Grass clippings, this is kind of the big one, and my pet peeve, keeping grass clippings out of storm drains and out of surface water. A bushel of grass clippings contains about 1/10 of a pound of phosphorus, which can grow up to 50 pounds of algae once it's in the lake. So this is a really big one, and probably the one that we see violated most often. When you see grass clippings in the street, not really sure what companies they come from, but this is a big one for us, and we reiterate this every year with the companies, and then as much as we can with our public outreach activities with residents.
Kelly, what was that figure? How much, what?
So a
makes how much?
bushel, like a bushel basket of grass clippings,
Okay.
contains about 1/10 of a pound of phosphorus,
Okay.
and that can create up to 50 pounds of algae with that much phosphorus.
That's a good thing to tell
So it's
people
a pretty
about.
high concentration of phosphorus in grass clippings.
Thank you.
And then we kind of take it a step further. Some of them are removing grass clippings. We prefer them to be mulched and left in the yard, so that those nutrients can be recycled and reduce your fertilizer application. But if they are taking it off-site for composting, we do ask that they are making sure that the compost pile is protected from stormwater runoff. They're keeping it away from storm drains, so that it's not getting in through that source. Oops, okay. We've also asked them that, if clients are asking, if they're concerned, that they will provide information about best management practices, things like putting in, water efficient landscaping, rain barrels, rain gardens, kind of lakeside landscaping, and, they're certainly welcome to have their clients contact us. We don't expect them to know about all of these things. And we are going to add water conservation to this, again, because the BPW is concerned about that, and that's not just this year, it's going to be moving into the future. And so again, we're providing resources that they can have available to them to give to their clients, or they can just have their clients contact us. And occasionally they take advantage of this, and I'll get a contact from somebody looking for information about something related to water quality. Non-native invasive species awareness. This is something that they wanted to add to the program a few years ago, because it's becoming more prominent in the environment, and we've got a lot of groups working on this. So they are making their staff aware of some of these kind of nasty non-native invasive species, and if they're finding them at sites, they are notifying their clients. And then I've provided them some resources as far as there's some training websites they can learn to identify, and then the local resources you can go to get treatments done. Kind of like the fertilizer, if the homeowners are participating in lawn maintenance, they're providing schedules for mowing and watering to make sure that they're following the components of the program. And then the last thing that we make sure that they do is any certifications and licensing that they have with the state, in particular the Department of Agriculture, related to pesticides, that they keep those licenses current. And then I did want to mention just quickly about MACC member involvement. The City of Holland is a partner. They sign the certificate every year, just like the lawn care companies do. And the one thing extra that they, again, voluntarily put into their commitment is that when they bid out lawn care and landscaping, is they will only accept bids from companies that are on our partner list. And I know that Park Township has done that previously too. We've had companies add to our list because Park Township said, you need to call the MACC and get on this list. So we appreciate that. But the City of Holland is the only one that actually signs that statement every year. So I'd like to encourage the rest of you to consider actually, signing that statement and kind of giving it some formality. And then certainly, if you have staff that are doing lawn maintenance as opposed to contracting out, I can provide some basic level of training to review those program requirements. And then we also do have some online modules that we put together for the lawn care company, so they can have, especially when they have seasonal staff coming and going, they can sit down for like 15 minutes and run through these modules and kind of learn the basics. So we can certainly make that available to your staff as well. It doesn't have to be just for the lawn care companies. All right, so that's what I have on that program. Any questions about the Partners program?
Thank you, Kelly. And you're going to take care of the next part on the grant?
Yes, so there was a memo in your packet that didn't have a whole lot of details in it about a Great Lakes Commission grant proposal that we're working on. The reason that it didn't have a lot of detail is because that proposal is due this coming Friday, so we're still working on the details. I do have more to share with you today, but kind of the basics of it is their Great Lakes Sediment and Nutrient Reduction Program. We have had several grants from this same funding source in the past. We've got 2 existing ones right now, in fact. So I mentioned this round is due this Friday. Awards will be made sometime this summer with projects starting October 1st, so it's a fairly quick turnaround for most grants. It would be a 3-year grant, or up to 3 years, and the maximum is $200,000 per project with a 25% match requirement. And then geographically within the watershed, we can pick up to 4 sub-basins to focus our work in. And so what we have put together is a proposal with just 2 practices, and primarily because Rob's been able to secure some commitments from some farmers. So we've got 1,000 acres committed to do cover crops over the next 3 years if this grant were awarded. And then 1 grass waterway project that's almost 2,000 feet. So that's the majority of what we can do with that money. We already have commitments from farmers. So that certainly helps make a proposal more competitive, that we already have most of the work that we would do committed, and then we're confident that we can secure the rest. This would equate to, over the 3 years of the grant, to just shy of 4,000 pounds of phosphorus. The overall goal of this program for the 3 years is 22,000 pounds, 22,000 pounds of phosphorus, and they anticipate awarding 10 projects, so we need to be 10% of that, which would be 2,200 pounds, so we're well over that, which again should help make our proposal much more competitive. And then 10-year totals, which Rob may need to adjust these, but approximately we've been working on budgets on both financial budgets and phosphorus budgets, but the grass waterways have at least a 10-year lifespan, so we have to be able to report to the grant the 3-year total versus the lifespan of the project. So those grass waterways have a much longer lifespan, so we'll get a good reduction in the 3 years, but over the life of those practices, we can almost double that. And then just there'll be some other minor activities within this grant. I mean, the focus is to really get the conservation on the ground, but we've kind of put in our task to do some field days, and then certainly some project promotion, writing articles, our social media interactions, those sorts of things. The budget itself that we are kind of finalizing right now, we're just shy of that $200,000. Our goal was to max that out as best we could, so we're $2 shy of that. And I know in talking to these grant agencies before, they would rather you just submit a grant request for the max than try to pinch pennies, so we may add the $2 back in there somewhere and call it good. But the majority of that would be going right directly to the best management practice design and installation, and then the remainder for staffing, and then some printing and postage, some incidentals. So again, this is split over 3 years. And then the match requirement, again, just kind of shy of that 67,000. We requested 22,500 from Project Clarity that would go towards the best management practices. So that brings that number up to 178,000 that we could spend on practices. And then the rest would come from the MACC, again in that salary, printing and postage. So what we did there was, you can see the numbers, the grant and the match from the MACC pretty much line up. We kind of just went through each line item and just put half to the grant, half in match. So that equals just over $14,000 a year that we would need out of the regular watershed budget to provide the match to the grant. So that's all I have on that. Are there questions before we do have a motion we'd like to request? But any questions about kind of the technical aspect of this project?
And Tim, you're going to be the negotiator?
Yes, I would
Okay.
do my best on behalf of the MAC. I think just a couple of things to add to this. With any grant process, it's a competitive process, and so you want to put together, your best foot forward in your package that you're preparing, and trying to leverage the dollars that are available with the local match that we can scrape together, minimizing the staff time request that we're seeking, and putting most of that grant money into the actual best management practices that are being installed. I've applied for many state and federal grants where I came from, and also worked with the nonprofit very closely. And I would often say grants like to fund cake, not bread. And the bread is what we often need, though, to support a program and help it to survive. And as MAC members, you're providing that bread in the form of your local dues, so that we can go after the cake of having grant dollars continue to pour into this area to install BMPs. And so this is yet another case where we can continue the good work that Rob is doing with Kelly's oversight. As I've been learning more about the program that we've had over the years, 3 stats I've been telling people about that are directly attributable to the work that Rob and Kelly are doing. But they've made contact and negotiated contracts, I should say, with 65 private landowners and farmers. Have touched 16,000 acres of ag lands with some form of BMP or another. And in the Peters Creek watershed, the highest, most sensitive watershed where we need to do the most work, have touched 30% of that, which is a significant number. So in order to continue that good work, we need to continue to be aggressively seeking grant opportunities like this, putting forth our best foot in the ask, so that it's the most attractive proposal, hopefully, that they see. But we need to rely on your dues as MAC members to continue to provide that local match, which is difficult to do with the watershed dues that we have currently, and more will be coming on that. But we saw, I think, at the last month's meeting, Kelly showed some stats of where we're seeing the trend in terms of phosphorus levels in the lake, and I think a number of people would stand behind it and say that's directly attributable to a lot of the ag practices that have been adopted, and thanks to the farmers who are taking steps to try these new practices, and also thanks to the work that Rob is doing and engaging them and helping them, convince them of trying these new practices. And of course, the nice carrot is having the funding available to pay for that. So the motion is basically asking that you authorize me as the director to negotiate and execute the grant agreement should we receive it. So with that, Kelly or I can answer any further questions you may have.
And based on what you said, one more thing I want to point out. This budget is based on only 30% of Rob's time being spent on this project. So it's only 30%. The rest will be doing other projects with other funding, hopefully. So, and it's very little of my time, just a few hours a month to do the administrative stuff. So this doesn't fund a lot of staff time, is kind of the bottom line.
Tim, did you think of maybe using drone video as a part of your presentation? I think that really, there's such an amazing waterway, but you can't really see it until you're like up above, and you can see how the farmland and everything goes. And with all our top 3 in the state of agriculture and tourism and manufacturing, it all happens right here all together, and showing that in a short little thing. It's amazing how effective video is for a presentation. Just a little idea.
Certainly helps tell that story and let you visualize. When you're out in these more remote regions further away from Lake Mac, you're not necessarily thinking about the water quality of Lake Mac, but it starts upland and finds its way downstream eventually.
Yeah, like a little video interview with Rob and a farmer.
Yeah.
And just a little piecing together little stories of people that make a good, clean MACC.
And I think we need to do a better job of telling our story, and that would certainly go to that end of furthering that message of what the MACC is here for, what we're doing, but also in larger scale what the farmers are doing to help with that issue.
Yeah,
certainly.
it's a great story.
Kelly, thank you for your work on this, Rob, and our motion is to designate Tim to work on the details, so we'll take a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Nancy.
Support.
Thank you. Any questions for Kelly or for Tim? Again, thank you for your work. I'd say round up, Kelly. Just round up. You'll get you down. All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. Thanks, Kelly. All right. Monthly financial report. Tim.
So the the monthly financial report through the end of February is available in your packet, but you'll see that as far as anticipated revenues, we're at 52%, and total expenses just shy of 31%. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Executive committee report.
So the executive committee met back on March 12th, and I got to say I really appreciate the added involvement of the expanded membership and the perspectives that those of you that have been attending bring to the table. I'd like to highlight something out of every meeting, and since we have a couple of minutes, one thing that I mentioned will be coming, and I'll say again will still be coming as we prepare for the next budget cycle, which will be here before we know it. We actually only have the April meeting where I'll have a draft budget for your review and input, but then the subsequent meeting is June 3rd because we're combining our May and June meetings. So we're going to be talking about these budget issues, and the one that you'll see highlighted in the midsection of the executive committee meeting report was the watershed. And we're operating on a deficit if you look solely at the watershed figures. And that's in large part because the dues have remained constant since 2005 at $110,000 collectively. And so I'm in the process of developing a plan that I'll hopefully have more details on for you to consider at the next meeting. But I think it's very important that we continue the good work that we've been doing. And thanks to Rob and Kelly. Also want to better tell the story, I think, of the service that Kelly is providing through the MS4 services that we operate. That's the municipal separate storm sewer system. And our two cities, our two counties, and two road commissions all directly benefit from the work that Kelly is doing. I know personally speaking, I came from a city that was an MS4 and was very blessed to have a full-time staff member doing the things that Kelly is doing for our 6 agencies. And that was the envy of many other communities that were struggling to keep up with the reporting requirements and staying current with what the regulations dictate, and also preparing for and administering the audits that take place every few years. So that's a great service that she's offering. The work that we're doing with Project Clarity, I think is evident in the movement that we're seeing on that phosphorus needle, yet we're applying for grants and covering all of staff out of that $110,000, which really isn't sufficient to do, I think, all the work that we're doing. So I've been talking to the executive committee about this issue and plan to do so again in April, and then hopefully come to you with something to begin considering at the April policy meeting, ultimately leading to a budget that will be hopefully approved at the June 3rd meeting. So it's a quick flyover, but that was a key point of our discussion this last meeting.
I would certainly echo what Tim said. Honestly, having a large executive committee has been such an improvement to get perspectives from Tom and Kevin and Punkage and Jim. And Hannes, your historical perspective is just, it's amazing what you bring to the table. So it's such a better executive committee, discussion's better. I know Tim has not been here a year, but he's already thinking down the road in terms of the organization, our future, the structure, watershed, and how things work. So I really look forward to that executive committee and appreciate it. And then Terry will join us, and it will be even better. All right, 4th of July.
So just wanted to add this as an informational item because it's different and it's exciting to think about the 4th of July after we've come off this eternal feeling winter. But wanted to bring this up to you. This was new information for me as I'm learning all things here, but I understand the MACC members have collectively contributed to the cost of the fireworks. Speaking of cost increases, have remained constant at $29,000 since the year 2012. So I liken this to buying my wife flowers on our anniversary. I could spend $30 every year, but over time she's going to get fewer and fewer flowers, and so it is with fireworks. In meeting with the organizers of this event, they did bring to me a request for a 10% cost increase. The bullet points that are in that memo kind of explain their reasoning why they feel there needs to be an increase if we want to continue with the same level of fireworks show. Of course, the alternative then is to just kind of reduce it by 10%. But wanted to put that out there, gather any feedback you have either now or just pull me aside later or shoot me an email or give me a call. But that is the request. So basically going from $29,000 to $31,900, which again is split up based off of population. I understand it's my role to do that calculation, but then the Community Foundation is the one that sends the letters out to the agencies. So you will be getting that the request for that shortly. So any comments, questions on that?
Go to Old Riceville, it's free.
That's right. They get their fireworks free?
Yeah.
Nothing's free.
It's not free for them. We don't pay for any of it, though. They'll send out, I don't know, a couple thousand people out there, and they'll pay for it all. And it'll go on for 45 minutes at least. So.
Well, Zealand Township could pay for it all too, then it would be
We
free
could, but
for
we're not going to.
All right. Thank you, Tim. Mr. Nightcamp, we're in your township. Any comments?
Sure. First of all, we just have to say thank you to the MDOT for the job they did up here with us and with Zealand and stuff like that. We're both very, very happy that we turned out the way we did. We were fortunate that at one point when they said they weren't going to do it, we put a left turn lane over there on 64th or 84th Avenue, and that was a big plus for everybody in that area too, because we had the hospital right there that could make that turn if they needed to and got there. So we appreciate that, and I'm sure that the city of Zealand likes it too. So.
Amen.
We have a new hotel going there at the same spot or in that same area. It's going to be called Avid is going to be the name of it. They haven't started it yet, but they were in here a week or so ago, and we talked about it, and they're getting ready. I think as soon as the weight restrictions get off, then they'll start moving there. So we're looking forward to that. Another big one that we've been talking about for quite a while is the Critter Barn, and the Critter Barn is now in the process of being ready to start some contracting there. It'll be on 80th Avenue between Felch and Riley, there again when the weight restrictions come off. So we're looking forward to that so that we can having their building off the Adams Street, where we've always had a lot of issues where you got to be careful with the traffic and stuff like that there. So we're happy with that one. We got one little problem that it's not a problem yet, but Trailside is over here on Byron also, and they're about the only one left that has places to go to get houses to go up and stuff like that. They're still farming. They're not ready to continue to go with what they've done in the past, but we'll see to it that gets done too somehow or other. And then we did do a couple of upgrades on some of our property. Drent Grove, they've added considerable amount of area to their building there, and we did over here at the community center. It's the first time we've done anything there in a lot of years, and that should be done too in about a month or something like that. So one of the biggest problems we're having right now is Byron Road with the bridge over here. We've got weight restrictions on it, 19-ton capacity on that, and to be real honest, if you don't cheat and you go over it with a fire truck, you're overweight. So we have a major problem in front of us here that if you wanted to obey the rules, you'd have to go all the way around to Drent or all the way to the expressway, or you could go all the way any place to get on the expressway to get into Zeeland. So that's a problem that we have, and I don't know what they're going to do with it. We've been working with the MDOT and with the county and everything else. So that's something that probably couldn't get taken care of in a couple of years if you tried. So that's our main problem that we have right now. Other than that, you're in the promised land and enjoy it.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you for hosting. Always good to be here. Any other member comments? Yes, sir.
You know, sitting around the table here, we're all partners in a lot of projects, and the Road Commission has been partners with MDOT for a number of years in doing state trunk line maintenance. And some of you may be aware of the fact that we've been attempting to negotiate the terms of that contract for several years now. And I'm happy to report that we have an agreement that allows us to go ahead moving forward, addressing a number of the issues that we brought up to MDOT that were hampering our operation or creating inefficiencies. And based on Eric Kine's input from the Grand Region, we've come up with a modification to our contract that I think is going to be very helpful to all the residents of Ottawa County, and will make MDOT more efficient, will make us more efficient, and do a better job of winter maintenance and summer maintenance.
That's good news. Thank you, Tom. Any other member comments? Then our next meeting is on April 22, Olive Township Hall. If you're traveling, have safe travels over spring break, and we're adjourned.